Good morning, everybody. It's Dana Brigman. It is about, I don't know, I think 10:30. Oh gosh, it's almost 11 on Monday morning. And I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things and let you try to understand a little bit more about where I'm coming from and where I'm headed with this group. So over the weekend, I sent a post that said I would not be responding anymore to what oil do I use for X. And there's really two reasons for that. One is, as a distributor, seller, growing business for Young Living, we have to follow compliance rules that basically keep us and Young Living out of trouble. And we can't get into diagnosing, treating, prescribing essential oils in these forums or in blog posts or things of that nature, because the FDA basically says we can't do that. So if you've ever paid attention to any of the commercials for some of the homeopathic remedies that are on TV commercials, or some products that are on TV commercials, especially think like weight loss products or some of the joint products and things of that nature, you'll see a disclaimer down at the bottom that says not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, blah, 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 anything, right? And we really fall under that with the essential oils. So we have to be super careful that people are not saying, what oil do I use for X, right? Because it might not be that. And that's part two of this for me, is I need you guys to think on a much broader spectrum. And so we're all different, right? And there are choices of oils and choices of things that could be used and could potentially be used together, or potentially need to be excluded for a variety of reasons when we take a step back and look at the whole scenario of yourself or the dog or your children or whatnot. So for me, in the last, I guess really in the last year and a half or so, as I've gone down this path of really getting focused on wellness, it's not just what oil do I use for X, it's what's going on, right? So I'll get, a couple of examples is I see sometimes and a lot of groups are super strict. They will not talk about homeopathy and essential oils in the same group. They won't talk about essential oils and training in the same group. They won't talk about turmeric paste and essential oils in the same group. And it's like, come on, there may be a crossover or a combined kind of solution that we need to be looking at, right? So I saw just yesterday in a Facebook group that I'm in for homeopathics, a 7-month-old puppy presenting with fear-based issues. And their question is, what homeopathic remedy do I use to fix this? And I'm thinking, your puppy's 7 months old. You need some socialization. You need some training. You need some friendly stranger interactions with positive associations that say, where's the next friendly stranger coming from? Because he has beef liver in his hand, right? And so do you need a remedy for a puppy that is showing some fear-based issues? Probably not, right? Probably not. At least not until you've tried some of the more realistic's the wrong word, until you've tried some of the more behavioral kind of solutions to sort of put that dog back in balance and give him the experience that he needs, right? So for me, it's a look at the whole dog. When I do a wellness consultation, I'm taking a step back and saying, Tell me about what your dog has, what he eats, what he does, where he shows sort of signs of certain behaviors. When were the last vaccines that your dog received? How many has he had? Did he get him every year? Is there a chance that he got a double dose when he came into rescue because we didn't know his background and we dosed him again? We don't know, in a lot of cases, but certainly we need to take a step back and say, what's the whole picture? And for me now, I can't even say that it's a whole picture, because as I dive deeper into traditional Chinese medicine now, and Reiki and homeopathics, and there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that come together, right? A lot of pieces that come together that say, here's what you need to use as your starting point of research, and then go make the best decisions that you can based on those elements for what you want to implement for your dog, right? So it's not a prescription, and it's not this is going to work, because it might not, right? It might not. We're all different. We all respond differently. And what we may start to see is layers of things change or unravel or expose themselves as the layers peel away for other problems. Ideally, not that we're introducing a new problem, but that we get to the real core of what was going on in the first place. So when someone says to me, for example, my dog has a runny nose, what oil do I use for that? There are a lot of options. There are a lot of potential choices. But the first question you need to say is, what's the origin of it, right? Is it chronic? Is it new? Is it seasonal? Is it situation-based or circumstance or environmental-based? And so this is part of why we can't say, my dog has X issue, what oil do I use for that? So I've mentioned before that I'm going to be doing a series of presentations. They will be more, there'll be oils discussed in there in terms of first aid or emotions or aging pet, for example, and things of that nature. And we can do that. We can talk about how these oils work in those categories, but we can't talk about it in terms of how it works in your dog's specific situation, right? So I have a dog training business in which I've incorporated wellness into that. So all of my clients that are part of the dog training get wellness consultations and guidance. And in fact, I even include now a starter kit for all of my clients. It's part of their package, and we move forward, and they always get consultations about how to do that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be trying to do more presentations for you guys. Some will be super short. Some will be these deeper presentation, like the series that's coming up starting Tuesday, March the 6th, I think it is. So I'm trying to give you more broad information that then you can go off and figure out how to make the right decisions for your pets. But if you feel like you need a consultation that kind of steps back and says, let's look at the whole. Let's look at the whole dog and the whole environment, and you as well in some cases, because remember, the dogs pick up our energy. They often pick up our illnesses, or at least clues to our illnesses. And so we often see, if we look at the dog, a mirror of what's happening, and you might not even fully understand it yet. So that doesn't mean I'm looking to get into your personal business, but I know from a training perspective, when I see dogs that come in with a boatload of stress-based issues, anxiety-based issues, over-aroused-based issues, it's seldom just the dog's problem, right? It's seldom just his problem to deal with. And I'm going to do a little video on that in a couple minutes, talking about that more. But I think many of you are starting to say, I love this idea of using natural products, and I love this idea of using essential oils. Which oil do I use? And it's not always that simple. These are not like going and saying, do I choose Advil, Tylenol, or aspirin, right? It's not that. It is a bigger picture. These are not, I think many of you look at this as sort of a first aid, Band-Aid kind of thing. And surely there is an opportunity for first aid, even emergency first aid with this. And that's one of the presentations that we'll do. But when you're saying my dog has a runny nose, why? Right? And you may or may not know. You may need a vet to go give you a diagnosis, or you may say, I have no idea. And then we need to take a step back and say, is this an environmental factor? Is it a respiratory factor? Is the respiratory issue caused by the environmental factor? There's all sorts of pieces to that equation that say what the right way forward ought to be. So I just want to plant those seeds in your head, and I'll end with this thought that it's important to not just say, my dog has X, what do I use, right? You need to take a step back and say, why does my dog have X? Why does my dog have X? And what do I do? How do I do it? How long do I do it? And so on. And that's the thing. That type of analysis can't happen in Facebook. It can't happen in a blog. It can't happen in these groups where we don't know. We don't know all the information. And even in my training business, when somebody says, my dog resource guards, right? What do? I'm like, okay, I got a list of questions. What does he guard? When does he guard? From who? Is it from everybody? Is it from people only? Little people, big people, men only, dogs? Is it only in the kitchen? Is it anything dropped on the floor? There's a million things that come into the analysis of something like resource guarding. And you got to know the whole story before you can start working on a plan. And then when that plan starts getting implemented, you might be surprised by some of the new things that show up or some of the other things that get solved. Now think about that for a second, right? We're working on resource guarding, and suddenly we're showing up with confident leadership and different type of guidance, and there's more protocol and control and leadership, and all those things are starting to come together, and we're seeing dog start to show different behaviors elsewhere. It happens all the time. And it also happens often where we think it's one thing, and it turns out to be something completely different. And I'm going to come back and do a separate video on little Tessa here and Wallace and talk to you about some of those things. So just food for thought on why we're changing the ability to ask that question. What oil do I use for X? We're not going to cover that here. And the why, and then where can we go look at a whole different way of trying to problem solve this. So I've rattled on for a while, and I'm going to stop, and hopefully you'll get the gist of this, and we'll keep doing more.